Hey everyone, welcome to episode number 803 of NoDQ&A video right here on NoDQ.com, as well as the YouTube channel and NoDQ&A videos affiliate, ringsidenews.com. NoDQ.com has got you covered this Sunday. WWE Extreme Rules, news, rumors, and of course, live results coverage. Got another batch of your questions to answer today, so let's get right down to it. First one comes from Sean T. Flick. If Rock vs. Brock and Undertaker vs. Cena happens at next year's WrestleMania, who do you book to win these matches? I think it depends on what the competitors are doing long term. If Undertaker is retiring after WrestleMania 33, I think it makes more sense for John Cena to win since he's the guy that will be sticking around after WrestleMania. And even if Undertaker's not retiring, which I really feel he probably should, if he's facing John Cena at WrestleMania, I mean, that is as big as it gets. And I think that would be a good time for Undertaker to call it a career. I do feel that it's best for the younger star to go over when the older star is retiring. That's an old school mentality, and I think Undertaker would want to put somebody over on his way out. Does John Cena need it? No. Ideally, you'd have somebody else to get the rub off of Undertaker, but it is what it is. If that match does happen at WrestleMania, I think it's best for Cena to win, and I'm sure some people out there are not going to agree with that, but that's just how I feel. And as far as Rock versus Brock goes, I would say that if he is sticking around with the company, I would go with Brock to win and protect that investment. However, if Brock is planning to wrap things up with WWE next year, then I think it would be perfectly acceptable for The Rock to go over. Alright, this one comes from @ForgedJoker. Hey Aaron, do you think Dean Ambrose will have another run as the US champion once his feud with Jericho is over and bring back credibility? I'm not really sure anybody at this point could bring back credibility to the US title. I'm not even sure if John Cena could do it now, just because WWE did so much last year and John Cena did so much last year to elevate the title, and now it's right back to where it was before. I think that if you have somebody who's being groomed for a top position and they win the US title and they have great match after great match, maybe eventually you could make the US title meaningful again. But right now, I'm not sure Dean Ambrose is the guy. Dean Ambrose hasn't exactly been portrayed as a top-level superstar. He gets a main event reaction, but he's not pushed like a main eventer. Alright, this one comes from Jishnu. Hey Aaron, what are your expectations from Primo and Epico? Is there any chance that Carlito returns to WWE and joins the group? I think if Carlito was going to be back and aligned with Primo and Epico, it would have been done already. They would have hyped up Carlito's return, or he would have just returned suddenly with them. I think that it's pretty clear they're moving forward with Primo and Epico, and it seems unlikely at this point that WWE will bring back Carlito. There have been rumors over the years that Carlito would return. I remember the Hall of Fame a few years back. He was there for the induction of Carlos Colon, and he wasn't really happy about not being part of WWE, and maybe that hurt him even more. The chances of him coming back, who knows? I do know that a lot of people out there feel that Carlito being involved is the only way that Primo and Epico can be saved at this point. I'm not sure if I agree with that one way or another. I think that Carlito might make a small difference, but in the end, I doubt that this Primo and Epico reboot is going to work. Whether you have Carlito there or any number of people, I just don't see it working out long term. Alright, this one comes from @DMinor88. Would you give Nakamura a Heyman-type promoter so that his language barrier doesn't hurt him from being pushed in the main event? I could see something like that maybe working. The thing about Paul Heyman, and I've said this before, he's worked out well with Brock Lesnar. He worked out well with CM Punk, but every other guy didn't really work out, having Paul Heyman as a mouthpiece. Nakamura is definitely somebody that could benefit from having Paul Heyman be a mouthpiece. But the truth is, Nakamura can go out there and he can sell himself without having to cut promos. And I'm hopeful that WWE will just let him go out there and do his thing. He's got the charisma. He's got the in-ring skills. And you look at people like Goldberg in the past. Goldberg got insanely over in WCW, and he never said a word. He did it without saying anything. So at the end of the day, promos are not everything. They are important, but there are guys that can succeed in professional wrestling without cutting promos. And I definitely feel that Nakamura is one of those guys. Whether he has Paul Heyman or not, I think that if he's given the opportunity to succeed, he will do so. Alright, this one comes from Mikey. Was the main event of WrestleMania 16 always supposed to be a fatal 4-way, or was Triple H versus The Rock planned? I believe that Triple H and The Rock was the planned main event for WrestleMania. I do know that when Mick Foley lost the career-ending match, he had gotten so over with the fans despite losing to Triple H back-to-back, first at the Royal Rumble and then at No Way Out, and there was such a huge reaction to Mick Foley, and everyone was talking about Mick Foley getting his one match at WrestleMania, and I think WWE just decided to ignore the retirement stipulation, at least for one night, and give Foley that WrestleMania main event position. And that's what they did. They changed up the plans and added Big Show to the mix, and then the idea was to have every McMahon in a corner, and that's what they went with for WrestleMania. I think that what WWE did at Backlash would have been better taking place at WrestleMania. To me, the whole finish of Vince turning on The Rock, that was just a huge letdown. I think Triple H and The Rock one-on-one at WrestleMania would have been stronger than that Fatal 4-Way match. Alright, this one comes from Oscar. When it comes to characters, is it fair to say that Undertaker and Kane will go down as two of Vince's greatest? Congrats on 800 videos. Absolutely. I think Undertaker will go down as the most successful character in WWE history when you're just looking at people based on their character and the longevity of that character and how Undertaker was able to evolve the character and change it up over the years. It's same thing with Kane. Kane went from being this feared demon, and eventually he got involved in tag teams and he did some comedy, and then he took off the mask and went back to being scary. Then he went back to being friendly again, went back to being in a tag team, then he became corporate, then he became masked again. Kane's been through a lot over the years, but I mean, it shows that the character had a lot of depth, and Glenn Jacobs took that character and went in various places with it and made it entertaining. I mean, Kane was an extremely entertaining character, and so was The Undertaker. Both characters will definitely go down as two of the most memorable characters ever in WWE, or any form of entertainment for that matter. Alright, this one comes from Ben Jarman. Opinion on Jay Lethal, and do you think he could go to WWE and be successful there? I've answered this before, I think a couple of times, so yeah, I'm trying not to answer the same question over and over again, but I'll say it one more time until the day he signs with WWE, so no more Jay Lethal questions after this. I think that he's very talented. I think that the Black Machismo gimmick in TNA hurt him because it stereotyped him and made him basically a comedy wrestler. But it showed that he has some charisma and he can go in the ring. And I do feel that he would do well in WWE, and I think they should bring him in at some point. Alright, this one comes from Robert. First time asker. What are your thoughts on Bob Backlund being Darren Young's life coach? I think it could work. It's a joke. The whole thing is for comedy. It's not meant to be taken seriously. It's not going to really do anything for Darren Young's career other than just give him some TV time. I mean, that's really what it is. Just a way to have Darren Young on TV so creative can come up with some ideas and he's got something, which is better than nothing. And Bob Backlund has definitely been entertaining in that role. I like that segment with Bob Backlund not knowing what a cell phone is and how people are using cell phones to tell time instead of watches. I thought that was a funny skit. But to me, it's Bob Backlund that's stealing the show, not Darren Young. So it is what it is. I think that it's entertaining television, but I really do not see it elevating Darren Young to anything significant long term. Alright, this one comes from I'm Savaged. Hey Aaron, congrats on episode 800. Why does David Otunga still have a contract when talented guys like Damien Sandow get released? 2 words. Jennifer Hudson. I mean, I think it's due to politics that David Otunga still has a job in WWE. It's not so much what he knows, but who he knows. And maybe he knows more than I think. But David Otunga, when he got his push in WWE, he really did not excel. He really did not stand out from anybody else. The one thing that he did that he had going for himself was the coffee mug. That was the most entertaining part of his act. And, he has the law experience, but really did not translate into anything that was particularly entertaining or memorable. So it could just be because of the fact that he's Jennifer Hudson's husband or boyfriend or whatever, and that's why he still has a job in WWE. Or they're just letting his contract run out, and, maybe he will be one of the next guys that gets cut. Who knows? Alright, this one comes from Ty Marshall. What are your thoughts on Steve Lombardi being released by WWE after 30 years with the company? Very interesting. I mean, it's definitely sad when somebody loses their job after being there for so long, and you would think that Steve Lombardi was going to be one of these guys that would have a job for life in WWE. That's what it seemed like, at least. I've heard that they were just looking for a reason to get rid of him, and apparently he made some minor mistake, and that was all they needed, and they were able to release him. So yeah, it's pretty sad. You would think that they would just keep the guy employed in some fashion. He's been loyal to the company for 30 years. He was memorable as the Brooklyn Brawler. Not memorable as a main event or anything, but that character people still remember to this day. So yeah, it's just a shame. It's just a shame. That's all I can really say about it. Alright, this one comes from Kayfabe Candy Ass. Would you agree that there's no need for a brand split because the contrast between main roster, WWE, and NXT is better anyway? The thing I like about the brand split back in the day, and if they did it again, is that guys on the main roster would not get overexposed. What I think is the biggest problem is that you have guys like Roman Reigns and AJ Styles, and most of the guys on not only Raw, but SmackDown as well every week. And back when you had a brand extension, you only saw John Cena once a week. You only saw Batista once a week. When you see these guys twice a week, it makes their characters even more stale quicker. So with WWE and NXT, those guys appear on NXT and that's it. And these guys on the main roster appear on Raw, but they also appear on SmackDown. So if WWE was to bring back a brand extension, that would be a good reason to do it, so you're not overexposing your talent as much. Alright, this one comes from Shorty Jess. Do you think WWE would ever work with New Japan like WCW did in the early 90s? I doubt it, because Vince would not likely want to have his guys put over guys from another company. Vince is very protective of his homegrown talent. There have been a few instances over the years where WWF, back in the day, would have guys go to Japan. Hogan would go, the Road Warriors would go, but for the most part, WWE has not worked with other promotions. WWE, as far as they're concerned, is the only game in town, and other promotions are only mentioned when it's really necessary for WWE to mention them. Like with New Japan, mentioning these guys so they could say, hey, we signed a world-class athlete like AJ Styles, and they don't want to say he's from TNA, so they just go ahead and say he's from New Japan. And that way, AJ Styles seems like a big deal to the casual fans, knowing that he had success somewhere else. So there's a reason for them to mention another promotion. Alright, that'll wrap it up for this edition of NoDQ&A video. Once again, stay tuned to NoDQ.com for Extreme Rules coverage. Subscribe if you haven't already, youtube.com/AaronRiffNoDQ or NoDQCAW, and I will see you guys next time.